Party people, what is going on? I am here again for a wonderful, phenomenal, fabulous over 40 fireside chat and another episode of Gen X Amplified. Thank you. Hence the microphone. Thank you for joining me. I'm excited for this conversation because my guest is a leadership and brand expert. She's a speaker. She is the co-founder and chief visionary officer of Motto. I love that name, by the way. Motto, one of the top branding agencies in the country. Now, which she co-founded with her partner in creativity, Ashley, Hansberger. Now, some of their esteemed clients include Google, Microsoft, Hershey's, and 20th Century Fox. And she is now also the author of this phenomenal book right here that we're going to unpack. It's called Rare Breed, A Guide to Success for the Defiant, the Dangerous, and Different, which you saw I have right here. And with this book, through her agencies and her workshops, she and her team are on a passionate mission to create magnetic brand experiences for promising startups and companies while creating a world for rule breakers and game changers, which I know include you all. So, and I'm excited to have her right here on the Fabulous Over 40 Fireside Chat and on Gen X Amplified. So without further ado, please welcome my fabulous and funky fedora and fashionable frames wearing guest, Sunny Bonnell. Sunny, what is going on with you?
Hey. Wow.
Hey, how you doing?
Funky fedora. I like that.
I love it.
I like that.
No, hey,
Great intro. Hey.
I had to. I mean, look at you. I love it. I felt no. Well,
that's a compliment, Adrion.
I started to buy one myself. I wanted to. No, it is. I love the way you
should.
rock.
Well, if you do, I can help you steer you to the right location.
I know you can. I love seeing the faces in the audience. Hello, Marilyn, Ian, Glenn, Wade. But you are my guest. First of all, let me just say that, as you all know, and as I told you, this is the Fabulous Over 40 Fireside Chat. And the reason we are having this chat is because I previously featured you in the Fabulous Over 40 Spotlight series.
You did.
Because you are fabulous. And, you're over 40, but it's all good. As I like to embrace that. But what I wanted to do with this platform is that we go, as I always say, we go beyond the spotlight. We give you the platform, we give you the mic, we give you the stage, we give you the opportunity to go deeper into your story, what you're doing, and how it is so critical and powerful to be what I call this magic middle in your life, because you are doing so many great things. So without further ado, Sunny, if you don't mind starting off with just a little bit of your story, basically that journey, and what led you to not only starting this great agency with your partner in creativity, Ashley, but also writing this book that we're going to unpack, Rare Breed. If you don't mind, just starting off with a little storytelling, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Well, that was a fabulous intro. So thank you. So to the audience, everybody knows that I'm an author, co-author of Rare Breed, A Guide to Success for the Defiant, Dangerous, and Different, and also co-founder and CEO of Motto, which is a brand strategy and culture company. We work directly with C-suite leaders to help them define vision, embrace it within the culture, and ultimately execute it out through the brand. And so we've been doing that since early 2005. So taking it back a minute, I guess, to the starting point. So it's early 2005. We are in college. We drop out of college to start Motto with $250 and no prior business experience. So there's nothing about that that says we'd be a glaring success.
Right.
But our story is one of unconventional success, and our path to building Motto over the last, it's now 17 years, was really in the early days filled with a lot of doubt and rejection. Starting in your early 20s, starting with $250, no business experience, being college dropouts, we opened our doors to a sea of doubt.
Yeah.
And I think that is those moments that really define you. Those are moments that either you thrive or you fold. Right. So we're about 2 years into business.
Okay.
And we're struggling a good bit, trying to get the business off the ground, and doing a very low point in the business. after being, we have this quote, we're often fired for the same reasons that we're hired. And we had a low point in the business, and we were thinking about giving up. Entrepreneurship is really hard for the most part for most people.
Yes.
If you've ever ran a company or trying to lead a company, entrepreneurship is hard, and that's why a lot of people aren't cut out for it and can't do it. And so this point in the business where we were thinking about quitting, we had a very pivotal conversation with my dad, who was also a self-made entrepreneur. And he says, not everyone is going to love you. And he said, not everyone is going to understand you. And you have to succeed because of who you are, not despite who you are. And it was such a moment, right? Where he was like, you're like rare breeds. He's like, you're really one of a kind. And you have to own that. You have to own who you are. And it was such a motivating conversation that it kind of flipped the script, because what he did was he unlocked something.
Okay.
He saw us in that moment for what we were and what we could be. And I think by encouraging us to bet on ourselves, right? What he did was he sent a catalyst, a lightning bolt, through that moment, and said, well, what would happen if you doubled down on that, right?
Okay.
And you made it your business. So that was 2007.
Okay.
And we kind of put that phrase in as a feather in our cap, if you will, and spent the next decade really exploring that, working with leadership teams, working with different types of organizations to try to understand what was it that these companies could lean into that was truly their own and that would make them their own. And how could we then begin to study the patterns and recognize what was happening between those organizations and with those leaders, and what was the difference between somebody pushing boundaries and breaking rules and activating positive change, and what were the differences between those that weren't. And so we spent that 10 years basically doing that work and proving out that theory. And so in 2019 we pulled that little phrase that our dad gave us back in 2005, 2007, and turned it into a book. And that book then unlocked thousands of other types of people, both at the organizational and operational level, but also individuals who were probably jumping from job to job and couldn't understand why they were not fitting into organizations.
Right.
It wasn't them that were failing. It was the organizations were failing, because when you are, in fact, a rare breed, or you are someone who is unordinary among the kind, and by your very nature of existence, you are, in companies are not designed necessarily to hire the outlier. In fact, we're not designed as companies and cultures to know what to do with that type of person. And so what often happens is they either quit, they get fired, they move on, or they go start their own big audacious dream.
Right.
And so we've spent the last decade or so really working with organizations to not only help them define the purpose of the organization and the strategic vision of the organization, but also help them understand that it's not enough to know why and how. You have to have who. You have to have the will of the people. And by understanding who, you're able to champion that message and fly that flag and get people bought into what you're doing, and also understand that diversity of thought is really important. So that's kind of the gist of it, of how we landed where we are. And now that is the work that we do at Motto specifically.
Wow. All right. So love the story. Restate that phrase again that he gave you guys, kind of the impetus to restate that again about
succeed because of who you are, not despite who you are.
Love it. Succeed. Oh, so this is 2007. Pretty much when
2007
we got the ball rolling and you put the feather in your fedora. And so I love this story. Number one is that you obviously said a lot of things that are so resonant with people, especially in this age. Now, this is for everybody at any age, and people who know me know that I do preach from the mountaintops the power of age inclusion, but I'm especially passionate for what I call the forgotten magical middle, right? And because a lot of times when you get into that period of your life where you have all this experience and you may have gone from job to job, or you may have stayed at the same company, you start to feel a little malaise. You start to feel that, maybe I'm not doing what I want to do, or you've been told that maybe you're not the right fit. And I think a lot of what you're preaching and speaking about, and you've written about, what you're going to get to, speaks to that pain point, or not necessarily a pain point, but an opportunity. Because a lot of times we don't awaken those powers, those superpowers that a lot of people may deem as something that's incongruent with the values of the company or with what's supposed to be. And so I love that you and Ashley and the team, because I want to get to the team too, took that statement and just ran with it. Now, when you started the company, what was your team like? How did you invite and inspire people to get on board this train? And then when you just put your arms around this new purpose, what was that part like as far as energizing team and getting people as far as your champions and your allies, if you will?
Yeah, well, that's a lot of questions in one, but let me try to tackle them
right.
all.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Just back to Rare Breed for just a second.
Yes,
the thesis of Rare Breed is, what if you could take the parts of yourself that other people criticize, traits they call defiant, dangerous, and different, and turn those so-called counterintuitive traits into your selling points. That is the heartbeat of Rare Breed.
Got it.
And I think by the very nature, now keep in mind, like, we're 20 something, we're very new to business. We're probably fumbling our way through leadership and trying to understand how to run a company in general. And so, we started out as like a design duo, and then very quickly, because we were in a town, we started in 2005 in a very small conservative South Carolina town, and there were only 2 or 3 major players. And at the time, most of them were advertising agencies. There were no real brand companies. Many people didn't even call themselves a branding agency. So right out of the gate, we're calling ourselves a branding agency. We're led by 2 females. We're 20. We're kind of coming in and sort of supercharging the old guard, which is disarming, for and threatening to people. And so, I think to some degree there was that, who are they? And then there was that sense of, who are they? I want to join.
Wow.
And so very quickly we started to get younger interns and people that were just coming in, and they were like, let me just, get you coffee or mop the floors or what, you're just like trying to just get people to kind of like, not only to learn how to lead, but who could also champion that vision. And once you begin to dial in that model, then you start working with companies and you understand that most of the cultures that are happening within these organizations are, there's a lot of misalignment. Right. So you have a great deal of work that we were doing in the very front end was helping companies see themselves and articulate themselves. The biggest gap in most organizations is that misalignment between the strategic vision, the culture that they want to create, and the brand that they're presenting to the world. And we saw that there was a bit of a trifecta or a triangle between those 3 things. And so that's what we really started to hone in on. And we did that work very one-to-one for a very long time. For probably the first half of the company, the company's motto's existence was designed to be very consultative and one-to-one. And it wasn't until a few years ago that we actually started to build out a team, because we knew that we needed to, champion our own vision and have other people that could do things that probably we were good at, but we're even better at. And that's why we started to surround ourselves with various types of rare breeds and all sorts of different people who could help us lift our sermon higher, so to speak, and also to be more effective with the work, by multiplying our ability to be in different countries and different rooms and with all different types of companies. We could then have effect more change on the companies that we were trying to serve.
Wow. Well, you definitely answered the question perfectly. And when I think about the premise of Rare Breed and what you guys were building, obviously, we're very, as humans, we love community. We like to be around like-minded people, or even we like to be around people that we deem aspirational, right? And so you're coming out the gate, which I love, two females, young, and right, you probably had those growing pains and not really knowing what you were doing, but
Hmm.
there was a level of attractiveness that was there because it was defiant. It was different. Some people may
Right.
look at it as dangerous, right? Who are these two
Hmm.
young 20-year-olds think they know what they know? But to me, that presents a magnet to the metal of people who find allegiance in that, especially the young
Right.
and the defiant and different. And then when you continue to embrace kind of the redirection of the company, so it sounds like when you start to work more with teams and also trying to define
To build
motto
our own
to,
team,
to build
right?
your own team.
Yeah, yeah,
And
because we were the vessel, right? Like, so, when you're starting off and
mhm,
you're trying to learn while you're doing it, right?
right,
And we just came from the school of hard knocks. We learned the hard way. We didn't come out and write Rare Breed in 2007. We wrote Rare Breed in 2019 after we had
19.
taken a
Wow.
tremendous amount of black eyes and, had gotten schooled and like certainly had learned the hard way. There was
Mm,
no easy path. So we didn't just kind of say like, oh, we were the OGs of this. Like, no, we lived it. We
right.
lived it. And then we came back and wrote a book about it, right? Because we knew that it was almost like a master class in owning who you are and also being able to study yourself in a way where you could begin to codify those things that were sometimes uncodifiable. The
Right.
reason that rare breed is such an interesting term is that most people in organizations or most people identify with this idea of being an outlier, being a misfit. You're the ugly piece of fruit, right? You don't belong. You're on the
Right.
outside looking in. And what rare breed does is it flips that. That's a badge of honor. That is a badge of honor to be a one of a kind, to
Hmm.
be the very things that make you who you are the things that become your strengths. And you said something earlier that I want to circle back to, which is about this middle age piece, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I'm almost 17 years in, right?
Yes.
Learned a lot. And what I think happens is that the difference between rare breeds and people who are not is one very important thing.
Okay.
While everyone else around them is sort of like shying away from these behaviors, rare breeds have kind of cracked the code on leaning into it. They have let it off the leash, right? They are vandalizing tradition like hooligans through the corridor. They have tapped into something which is self-awareness. And rather than it being the thing that gets them fired, it is the thing that keeps them thriving. And that is a
Mm,
really important distinction because as you get older and more secure in yourself and you become confident in who you are, you begin to understand that essentially what's happening is you're no longer letting the tail wag the dog, whereas when you early on in your journey and you're sort of letting all of these vices shut the door on you, well then you get a little bit hip to yourself and you go, you know what, like I actually have this gift or these superpowers. And yes, in the past they may have been, a vice or perhaps they were getting me fired, but what if I learned and was more strategic and I understood the power, the inherent power that they have?
mm,
What if I used it to be effective, to contribute, to be an asset, to be indispensable? That is when you change not only the perception of who you are, but the perception of yourself to the world. You carry yourself differently because you know that those traits are valuable.
right.
Whereas a lot of times society teaches us that they're not valuable, that they're the thing that's going to get you fired. They're the thing that's going to get you pushed out. They're, all sorts of reason, right? You don't belong. But
Right.
I think the goal for anyone is especially those who have read the book, and I see some people, some faces on here of people that I know
Yes.
that love the book and have certainly been a champion for it. But it changes your life, right? It
Right.
changes the way you move through the world. And not only has it changed that for individuals, but now it's changing leadership. It's changing companies because they're embracing and adopting these principles and going, you know what? Maybe it's we maybe it's a little bit of like something that we're doing as an organization that isn't quite dialed in. And now we need to set the pace in a different way so that we can hire for diversity of thought. We can champion discord and a little bit of disharmony, because that's what you want. You
Right.
want that ability to take something from good to extraordinary. And the only way that you get that is by pushing.
Yes.
Sometimes you got to push, and you got to get people who are willing to tell you, that's not the right way. There's a
Right.
different way, or there's a more interesting way. And that's what rare breeds do extraordinarily well. And I think you just, as a middle, when you get to that 30, 35, 40 age, I'm not saying that you know it all, right? You're certainly learning. I'm learning every day, but
Right.
I know myself a little bit better. And where before, in my 20s, when I was just not believing that any of that was worthwhile or valuable. Yes. I just thought that I would never be employable, that nobody wanted to work with me. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then you finally realize that that's not it at all. That's not it at all. You actually have many, many gifts. And how do you harness the power of them? And that's really what Rare Breed was intended to do. And so we're writing another book. So our next book is, it's going to be even cooler.
Well, hold your horses. We got to talk about this book. Oh my God, you guys are coming out the gate. Okay,
I won't let that cat out of the bag just yet. But
no. So let me. All right. So Rare Breed, a guide to success for the defiant, the dangerous, and the different. If you have not picked up this book, shame on you, but you still have time. Go get it. Go order it now. Get it now. All right. So speaking of the book, so let's talk about transforming those vices into virtues, right? So at the heart of this book are these virtues, or what you guys call it. Can you just talk about, you already described the premise of the book, which I love. So I want you to unpack it a lot more, and pretty much the premise of what you guys are using in the book, and also for your workshop. So what are these vices, virtues? I'll let you explain.
Yeah, so there's 7 of them.
7.
And there's 7 so-called vices, if you will, but we have flipped the script and turned them into virtues, as you said. And those 7 virtues are rebellious, audacious, obsessed, weird, hot-blooded, hypnotic, and emotional. And when you look at these, right, these 7 virtues, if you will, there's a dark side. They are as perilous as they are powerful.
Wow.
And what we were beginning to understand was that those things can be seen as destructive. They have a dark side. That borderland between the light and the dark of each of these are actually very murky and indistinct, as we describe in the book.
Yes.
And so the book is really geared at drilling into the individual, helping the person understand not only what those 7 so-called vices are, but ultimately, what do they do in your life, in your work, in your career?
Right.
And how do you harness the power of them? How do you empower them in your work? And what we did in the book, obviously, is drill down into each one of those, so you can understand. Let's take rebellious, for example.
Okay.
An asset when, a weakness when. And we tell stories about different people throughout history that have had these vices and have turned them into virtues, and how they were often change agents for great things to happen. And then what we started to see happen within the book is that more people were reading it. People were reading it at the leadership level, and then they were pushing it up through the company and saying, "Look, you need to read this because you need to understand me better. I'm not just a tool, right? I'm innovation.
Right.
I am the keys to innovation." And so that's been probably the last year of the work we've been brought in to do workshops on this. We're actually creating, we've got a quiz where people can take the quiz and find out which of the dominant traits is at work. And it describes who you are, how to leverage it, how to empower it. And the book obviously goes much deeper in that. But now we're even creating workbooks and complementary materials and courses. LinkedIn Learning has asked us to do a course on Rare Breed.
Congrats.
That's going to be really cool.
That's cool.
So people will be able to really, really understand this at great detail, and how it changes across the operational level. Because this is not just a know yourself better tool. This is this is something really empowering for people at the leadership level who want to understand how to hire more appropriately, and also for rare breeds who are coming into organizations to know the questions to ask, because they need to also know, am I joining a culture that's going to help me thrive, or am I joining a culture that's not going to help me thrive? And how can I even have those honest conversations with my leadership to say, I'm in a position that no longer fills me. And
Yes.
they're scared. Like they don't feel like they even have enough psychological safety to ask those questions. Right.
Right.
And
Right.
that's what we've really done at Motto. I mean, we've had people that have been in one role and then have switched to another role.
Wow.
And what a lucky, what a lucky and fortunate way to be able to do that, to allow somebody to go into a role and being like, this is the box and this is the box you play in.
Right.
And then giving them the opportunity to find out that that box doesn't work for them and that doesn't even like give them joy.
Yes.
And to be able to give them the environment to switch. Many companies don't do that. We do that at Motto. We've had two people switch entirely different roles. One being a project manager went over to the culture manager. We have somebody who was a chief of staff who now wants to be a strategist. I mean, it's amazing. Like, and to be that flexible and that accommodating is wonderful.
Yes.
It's a different way of working, but it certainly is one where you can champion the gifts of the people that you work with rather than try to suppress them and say, I hired for this role and this is the only role that's open for you. What if you said, you know what? We don't have that position, or maybe that position is not available, but you're valuable. We think you're valuable to our team. You've contributed. You've been an empowering person. Let's see how we can make this work for you. And that's powerful to be able to do.
Yeah, it's very powerful. So I have two questions, and the second question is probably quicker to answer. Number one, can you have more than one? Can you have more than one virtue or vice as far as being a rare breed badass?
There's a primary and a secondary, and actually the first iterations of the quiz, there was a primary and secondary.
Okay.
But usually what we found is people that have taken it. We've had people who try to game the quiz, and sometimes it fails. They're like, they just keep taking it until they try to get something different. But what we learned was there's always one that's pretty dominant. There's always a trait that when you really look back, you're like, you know what? That's probably pretty darn accurate. There's certainly, like, we're human, right? We're complex beings and we're made up of all different types of things. But if you were to study me on paper, right? And I've taken the quiz numerous times just to test my own theory here, but it's true. Like 90% of the time get audacious. And then some of the time I get obsessed. And if anyone there's people probably have worked with me on this call. I know Ashley has, and she's nodding her head. But, if you've ever worked with me, that's absolutely true. I am very visionary and I am extremely obsessed. So I'm obsessed with the details. They call me Hawkeyes in the company. I don't miss anything. And that's just part of who I am. But it's part of my strength. And for a long time, I was embarrassed by that. I was embarrassed that I was always dreaming really big, or I was obsessed with the details, or I demanded a greater quality. For the longest time, I was made to feel really bad about that. And one day I said, you know what? Like, that's like what I bring to the table.
Right.
Is the ability to do that, to help people who are thinking small, think much, much, much bigger and encourage them to. So that's a gift.
Wow. Love it. Love it. So let me just put her partner, the domain to take the quiz. Go to rarebreedleaders.com/quiz. Thank you, Ashley, for that. I know many people I want to take the quiz now. I'm kind of,
you better take the quiz.
I know I am. I'm not one. I'm going to take the quiz. Thank you so much for that. So my first question, how did you guys come up? I'm just curious, the process. How did you come up with these virtues? If you can give me kind of the short, like, what was that like, and how did you come up? Because I know that probably was not easy to do.
Yeah, we had whiteboards, and we wrote the book. We started the book in Dallas, and then we finished it in New York City. Okay. And we wrote it in diners, and we pretty much everywhere we were writing that book.
Wait, I'm sorry. Was that intentional to start in one
No, we conceptualized Rare Breed in Dallas, and then we got the book deal and moved to New York to basically launch the book and write the book and finish the book, so we could be closer to the publisher. But because we worked with HarperCollins, so it was crazy because the process of writing the book was really hard, and it was really hard because Rare Breed is something that's hard to put your finger on. the reason a lot of people can't write a book like this is because it's hard to articulate what we mean when we say that. When we try to describe somebody that has some of these qualities or traits, it's actually quite difficult to put. It's sort of saying like, when you're watching a singer or a singing competition, and you see all these contestants, right? And you have all these technically sound singers who get up on stage and they sing like birds. And then there's this person that gets up and they're a little bit quirky and their voice is not, flawless.
Right.
And yet there's so much character. It's like the Johnny Cash, right? of singing.
Yes.
Or Bob Dylan.
I was about to say Bob Dylan. That was
Bob Dylan. Like people would be like, he is not a good singer.
Right.
But the quality, right? There's something that you feel that changes the molecules in the room when you're with them. That's a rare breed. And it was very hard to put that on paper.
Wow.
And so we said, well, if we can't describe it, what are the traits that embody it? And so we had thousands of them. I mean, we had things like, well, they're relentless. Well, but relentless is not as important as being obsessed. Obsessed is more important than being relentless. And so what we kept doing was just weeding them out. And interestingly enough, we landed on 7, like the 7 deadly sins. But not after going through thousands of explorations of like a trait. And the most important part to the trait, and the reason that we landed on those 7, was all of them had to be manipulative or destructive in some way.
Wow.
So obsession, we know, leads to what? We've all been with somebody that's like just obsessed to the point that they knew that, like, they can't get anything done, right? Like you just have to pull it from their hands, right? Or they're agonizing to work with, right? Because they're so detail oriented and they get paralyzed by it, right? So obsession, there's a dark side to that. If you're hypnotic, some of the greatest, most influential people in the world were also some of the most evil. Think of like Hitler, right?
No, yes.
Charismatic.
Yes.
Hypnotic, up there, like able to move people, like to do crazy things. And yet the dark side of that, right?
Exactly.
Hubris. So each one of these things had to have something that was like, again, perilous. And that was the point to it. That's why we landed on those 7, because we knew that all of them had a very, very undoing trait, that they could wreck you if you had it. So what would it mean if we learn to lean into it and be fully present with it and use it as a force for good?
Wow, I love it. So, me and I and you and I we've had conversation before about the book writing process, because like yours truly.
It's hard.
I was about to say, so how many total years did it take to? Because I know it takes a long time to do the proposal, to get the deal. Well, how long did it take from ideation to signing? Because I know, I'm just curious around how many
Ashley,
years.
you might have to drop in the chat.
That's like, I'm just curious.
Like an eternity.
Oh, wow.
Seemed like it now. So many people don't know this, but we talk in the book, but the book got rejected originally. And so that made the process a lot longer, because in the book publishing world, it's known that if you go to a major publishers and your book title gets rejected, you can typically not go back with that same book or that same book title, because they'll be like, weren't you just here? I said no to you.
Right.
And we, of course, being who we are, being the
rare
breeds that we are, we didn't listen. As a matter of fact, we got rejected by every major publisher. We went and took the book back, the proposal back, and rewrote the entire thing. And we penned up, this is a funny story, but we printed out all of the letters, all of the rejection letters. They were like, Sunny and Ashley are great, but we don't want that book.
Love it.
And we printed them all out and we tacked them up like in our writing room, like, and literally we're surrounded by doubt, and rewrote the book proposal to that, kept the same name, changed the subtitle, reconstructed the entire book, and then took it back to the market, and it went to a bidding war. Much to the dismay of many people who are like, don't do it. You're going to piss everybody off.
Yes.
But we did it anyway, and it worked. But the total, I would say probably about 3 years, I think is about right. 4 years total.
Wow.
Because you get the book deal, and then it takes you about, if you're really good and you're really speedy, maybe 6 months, but it took us about a year. We missed our deadline, as a matter of fact, of turning the book in. We had rewritten the chapters numerous times, and we're just really a real joy to work with on that.
Wow.
They're probably like, oh God, just submit the book. But we had to get it right, because we knew that it would be, there would be debate around it. We had no idea that it would take off the way that it did. Let me put it that way. I think we thought, oh, we'll write something cool and maybe a few people will read it. We had no idea that, within 3 months of the book launching, we were sitting in front of Microsoft, like doing a full-blown workshop with some of their executive team on teaching them rare breed mindset. Like, we would have never even known that we were going to do that. But that was the beauty of it. It was a powerful idea.
Wow. That's lesson learned. Like, rejection, forget about it. Look,
forget about it.
Bidding war. All right. Rejection letters. Now, look, I'm holding it in my hand. Sunny and Ashley and team are presenting in front of Microsoft 15 no's. So what's interesting, again, this is such a phenomenal read, and I think timely, especially considering where we are right now and what they're calling the Great Resignation or the Great Reshuffle, the Great Reflection, where the power is back in the talent hands, right? Like, people are looking for purpose. They're looking for meaning. They're not settling for the mediocre, right? And they're realizing, hopefully after this book, they would even realize even more, and they take the quiz of their superpowers, their virtues, their assets, right? The things that people may think weird, and they want to bring that to the company. What has been the response in this COVID world? Because this was released, when was the publication date?
2019. So September of 2019.
Interesting, right? So that's
like 4 months before the pandemic.
Before the pandemic, now we see the world of work has totally been just blown up. What has been the reception, and has it been even embraced more because now the power is in our hands, the talent? And I'm just curious to see, and then with that question, you're just moving forward, your vision, your goal for this brand, this movement is what I actually prefer to call it.
Yeah. Well, yes. So the pandemic, absolutely. It was interesting. The book kind of caught on with individuals. And then when the pandemic hit, it just soared. A lot of people were reading it. They were trying to understand. And then you had the great migration, the great shuffling, the great resignation, all of those sort of tones that were happening across the industry.
Right.
And we wrote a Fast Company article that went viral. For Fast Company. Oh, wow. And they immediately gave us a column, and they were like, just write about that. And we were like, all right, cool. So we started writing about it. So we talk a lot about this in our Fast Company column, but we talk a lot about the power shift, but we also talk about what can be done. A lot of people are asking for but how do I do this? How do I innovate? How do I keep talent? How do I retain talent? And I think the old ways of working are no longer serving us, and it's demonstrated at large across the entire world. What companies can do is they can rethink the way that not only are they hiring, but culture is a competitive advantage, and creating a culture that's a little bit more focused towards psychological safety and allowing people to actually be who they are, and not shutting down channels because somebody had a political opinion. That's going on a lot in these companies, and they're getting a tremendous amount of backfire for it because they're silencing people. Right. And the thing that I think why Rare Breed resonates is because most people have felt silence their whole life. That if you think back to childhood, you think back when you're young, we have a teacher, a friend, a mentor, a parent. What happens, right? Fall back in line, keep your head down, stop making a ruckus. When I was little, I had a third grade teacher who was like, something about, I kept lifting my dress up. I should have never been in a dress, right? But I was in a dress, and she was just like, this is what little girls wear. Yes. And I was just like, no, because I wanted to wear Nikes. So
you were rebellious at third grade.
I was rebellious then. I used to trade my school lunches for Nike. So because I didn't have a lot of money, and so I would break dance after school, and I would trade my Yeah, I did. That's another fun fact.
Okay, I love it.
But I did. I used to, because I couldn't break dance in the shoes that I had, so I would trade my school lunches to wear Nikes, my friends' Nikes, till the end of the day, so I could break dance for like 30 minutes after school. So entrepreneur back then. But the reality of that situation, right, is that when you are young, you are often told you can't be this way, you shouldn't act this way, you shouldn't talk this way, you shouldn't dress this way. We are constantly shaped and molded and refined, our prickly edges ground down.
Right.
And what happens to people, right? They become silent forever. And I think the reason that so many of these topics have resonated so much is because people feel seen. I think they're coming alive. I think they're being like, this isn't the way that it should be. And companies are going to have to adapt. On the flip side, I think to the person that is perhaps rare breed or has one of these traits, understanding that, that it isn't about your way or the highway, but rather, these companies need culture ads. They need people who are going to come in and help serve the mission and help a greater cause and try to move things through. And the way to not do that is just to come in and cannibalize or lead to culture carnage, and just be toxic. That is not what we advocate for. We don't advocate for any of that, right? And toxicity is not what you want in any company, right? But there's a new way of working, a new way of moving through the world, and I think companies have to get beyond it, and people have to get beyond it. Employees have to get beyond it and understand that you can be successful, you can thrive, and you can sometimes have it all. Just depending on what it is that about yourself, what your value add is, and ultimately where you can help that company grow. And even if you're on the mission for a few months or a year, your goal is to have left that company or whatever work you're doing in a better place than when you came in.
Wow. I love it. This, again, rare breed, a guide to success for the Defiant, Dangerous, and Different. This is truly a manifesto for today's time. Beyonce probably read it, breaking her soul, like seriously, she probably did,
She probably did.
She's probably, I don't know which trait she would be, but probably all of them, because she's
I think she's a little rebellious. She's got a rebellious, yeah.
I love it. So speaking of Beyonce and music, first of all, I could really talk to you, Sunny, for hours about this, because again, and I was joking, but it's true. I really think that this book is a manifesto for today's time. I think that many people are in search of who they really are. They're trying to find meaning. They're unhappy. And even if you are, and I want to make sure I preface this, even if you are satisfied in your role, you can always grow. Like, it's nothing, you have to have a growth mindset. And there may be traits or vices that you may have deemed or may have been told years ago from like that third grade teacher that are now bubbling up. You would find joy, I assure you, and find solace in understanding that those characteristics and traits, those can actually be superpowers. And I love the book. I love what you guys are doing. But more about you, Sunny. I have one final question that I ask all of my guests and those who know me that listen to the podcast and know that my brand.
What song am I?
So, Sunny, if there was a song that would play every time you walk down the street or enter a room or break dance when you were 8 years old, probably not, that perfectly captures and illustrates you as the rare breed you are, what song would that be? What would be your own personal theme song?
Oh, that's so hard. Right now, I would probably pick "Don't Kill My Vibe" by Sigrid.
Whoa. Tell us why. You got to explain.
Well, I just think that, that's kind of like the nature, right? We go into these Zoom rooms and we go into these, projects and people, and the energy that you bring and the vibe that you give off, it's like, don't let other people steal your joy.
Yes.
And I think that's the piece of it that I have to remind myself is don't let others steal your joy, and more importantly, don't kill my vibe.
Don't kill Sunny's vibe. You can first of all, you can never kill your vibe. I don't think.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
No, with a name like Sunny, and a hat that you're rocking like that, and your personality, and it won't happen. But I love the answer. That's why I love this question.
Yeah. I mean, any other day I'd probably say like a Coldplay song or something, but like I think for sure that's a good one, right? Because
Yes.
I don't know, it's just I think people are really intense right now. I think people are
That's
feeling
true.
a lot of things, and I go into a lot of Zoom rooms. We do a lot of virtual work, and
Right.
I just think like to try to show up and help people, champion a vision,
Yes.
try to help them build their dreams. I think that is so important.
Yes, love it. Well, definitely check out the song. Her partner actually just put the link of the song onto Spotify link. I love it. So you guys, I love it. I love it.
Cool.
Sunny, this has been
Yes, so
a
much
joy
fun
for me. It's been
thank you.
informational, educational. I love chatting with you.
I love chatting with you too.
And I think especially for my audience and my mission in helping people thrive and get unstuck in those middle years, this is such a valuable tool. The quiz, the movement, Rare Breed. There's so many people who are fabulous and over 40 who may think they're rare breeds. They may think that it's a bad thing, but it's not. You can be fabulous over 40 and a rare. There's so many rare breeds in mid-career, midlife, and any age. And so can you please just let everyone know that it's watching, that it's also listening, because we're recording this for an upcoming Gen X Amplified podcast episode, how they can get the book and how they can learn more about the work that you and your team are doing at Motto and the Rare Breed movement.
Sure. So you can get the book on Amazon or wherever books are sold, although it had recently sold out. I think it's back. So I actually had was trying to send people copies, and I was like, it's sold out. I don't know what to do.
That's a great problem.
It was cool.
For you.
Yes, but you can get the book there. You can also go to rarebreedleaders.com. In the next month, we're going to have some workbooks and companion materials to the book up live there at rarebreedleaders.com. So you definitely should check that out. We'll keep everybody posted. And then also, if you're interested in any kind of culture and brand work, that's wearemotto.com. And all of our Instagram handles are wearemotto, so you can find us there. And thank you so much for everybody coming. It was such a fun chat.
Yes. All right. Put it down in the ticker. It's going across. You see
Rare Breed.
Leaders.com, rarebreedleaders.com. All of you that are watching, that is listening, be a rare breed. I'm sure you have one or more of those 7 virtues and traits. Embrace them, amplify them, embrace those superpowers, be a rare breed. Sunny, this has been so phenomenal. Thank you for spending time with me and our fabulous over 40 and Gen X Amplified community. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
and bye,
everybody.
Take care.